it ain't that much of a far-fetched thing to say that winter in Chicago can be a death sentence for you if you're homeless, and your only crime is that you live in extreme poverty. Well, first thing I want to say is that on the federal level, we got law on our side out here as we come out here and defend these brothers. There's a UN Declaration of Human Rights that was passed in 1948 that the United States government signed on to. According to our Constitution, that means that's law we should be following here in the United States. I don't think we've been doing a very good job of that. Okay. Also, we've got a state Bill of Rights for the Homeless. I want to read from that bill. It says, the legislative intent is that it's a long-standing policy of this state that no person should suffer unnecessarily from cold or hunger, be deprived of shelter or the basic rights incident to shelter, or be subject to unfair discrimination based on his or her homeless status. At the present time, many persons have been rendered homeless as a result of economic hardship, a severe shortage of safe and affordable housing, and a shrinking social safety net. It is the intent of this act to lessen the adverse effects and conditions caused by the lack of residence or a home. Section 10, Bill of Rights. Part A, no person or persons' rights, privileges, or access to public services may be denied or abridged solely because he or she is homeless. Such a person shall be granted the same rights and privileges as any other citizen of this state. A person experiencing homelessness has the following rights. 1, right to use and freely move in public spaces, including but not limited to public sidewalks, public parks, public transportation, and public buildings, in the same manner as any other person and without discrimination on the basis of his or her housing status. Part 2, the right to equal treatment by all state and municipal agencies without discrimination on the basis of housing status. Part 5, the right to vote, register to vote, and receive documentation necessary to prove identity for voting without discrimination due to his or her housing status. 7, the right to a reasonable expectation of privacy in his or her personal property to the same extent as personal property in a permanent residence. B, as used in this act, housing status means the status of having or not having a fixed or regular residence, including the status of living on the streets, in a shelter, or in a temporary residence. Now, in spite of these laws I just stated, look how the homeless are treated in this country and here in Chicago. Many of the brothers here will attest. We just buried one of our brothers, Jose Antonio Rivera, who died on Christmas Day. Y'all remember, brother? Yes. He died on Christmas Day. That's the day we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. A lot of folks don't know. Jesus Christ was homeless. Matthew 8:20 and Luke 9:58 both record a statement by Jesus in which he describes his homelessness by saying that, quote, foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head, unquote. So I want to say that if we're wrong in being here today on this cold day and defending our homeless brothers, if we're wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we're wrong, the state of Illinois is wrong. If we're wrong, Jesus Christ is wrong. I think it's pretty safe to say we ain't wrong.
We're right.
We're not wrong.
Thank you.
All right,
The next speaker, President Johnson.
Thank you very much. Listen, you just heard the sermon from our brother, who made it very clear that housing is a human right. And we're not wrong to stand in support of those who have been marginalized, unfortunately, for too long in this country, but more specifically in the city of Chicago. My name is Brandon Johnson, proud to serve as Cook County Commissioner, the 1st District, representing the west side of Chicago, the western suburbs. And I'm proud that there's a movement that's prepared to elect a new mayor in the city of Chicago, and I'm prepared to lead that. You know, it's very simple. The fact that we have over 65,000 unhoused in this city is unconscionable. But many of them are students, the students that I taught. When I started my public service career as a public school teacher well over 15 years ago, were many of the young people in my classroom who were doubled up, unhoused, and that type of insecurity continue to create that much more unrest. And that's why I'm fully supportive of the Bring Chicago Home ordinance that's going to raise the necessary revenue so that we can actually have access to housing. You know, what's really wrong is that you have an administration that has broken promise after promise after promise, and it has caused harm. And it's time well past that we actually change that. So I'm in complete support and solidarity with the movement to put an end to the gruesome, harsh, tiresome set of values that continue to harm people. And here's the thing, you all, and I close. Politics is personal. It is personal. And my older brother, who had untreated trauma, died addicted and unhoused because we did not have a political system that saw him. Today, sisters and brothers in the city of Chicago, we see the 65,623 families that are unhoused. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we pass the ordinance to finally put an end to this tale of two cities and usher in a stronger, better, safer Chicago.
That's right,
The person who's going to help, thank you. And so the person who is also a very instrumental voice in our overall movement to bring Chicago home is my current colleague, just for a couple more months, the Commissioner of the 8th District. Y'all make me feel really good. Cook County Commissioner Anthony Quesada.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Joel Quesada. I'm the Cook County Commissioner of the 8th District. First name Anthony, last name Quesada, Quezada. Use he, him pronouns. I'm out here today in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who are experiencing homelessness under this viaduct. I'm also here in solidarity with our community members, our neighbors, our local elected officials, our candidates, because we understand that our city must stop waging a war on the poor, but it must start waging a war on poverty. We live in one of the wealthiest cities in our country, yet we have 65,000 people who live out on the streets or doubled up in homes, and that ain't right. That is completely unconscionable and immoral. So as the Cook County Commissioner of this area, of Humboldt Park, of West Humboldt Park, I want to make it very clear to the city of Chicago that we will not tolerate any of these kinds of threats. The only type of outreach you should be doing is to assist these people who are hungry, who are cold, and who need a place to stay. We should be allocating our resources to build homes, not to hire people to displace people or to intimidate people. There are neighbors who live in this community who are with us today who say, leave our brothers and sisters alone, help them out. So as Cook County Commissioner, I'm committed to making sure that we're ending homelessness, not just here in the city of Chicago, but throughout Cook County. And I will be working very diligently over the next couple years to make sure that we're allocating the necessary resources to put an end to this national tragedy here in Chicago and Cook County. So I'm happy to stand here today to make sure that the city is not displacing anyone and that we are using all the time and resources necessary to put people in the rightful homes. So now I want to invite our next alderperson of the next 26th Ward, Jesse Fuentes.
Good morning. My name is Jessie Fuentes, Jessie Fuentes, Fuentes. She, her, they, them pronouns. I'm an organizer and activist in this community and now candidate for 26th Ward alderperson. Housing should not be a privilege in the city of Chicago, but a right for every human being that resides in our city. We can no longer accept that we can lose our brothers and sisters to sub-zero weather because we have not prepared our city to provide public housing for every resident across the city of Chicago. As the next 26th Ward alderperson, as the next 26th Ward alderperson, I am committed to ensuring that not only are we bringing more affordable housing to the 26th Ward, but that we are bringing public housing to the 26th Ward.
Yes.
that we are holding colleagues accountable in City Council. Now, I am a firm advocate and champion of the Bring Home Chicago ordinance, and I was saddened when we didn't have City Council folks come into City Council and vote on that ordinance. We have a responsibility to ensure the safety of every single resident in the city of Chicago, and I am prepared to do that job. I'm prepared to fight for our people. I'm prepared to champion an ordinance that can save lives because we are elected to do so.
That's right.
When we are elected into City Council, we have a moral obligation to show up to work and not to be absent. And I am prepared to do that. It's been an extreme privilege to meet with folks on a bi-weekly basis to understand the needs of our homeless population. They deserve to be treated with humanity and dignity. And this sweep, ain't it? And we're gonna sit here and we will defend our homeless population because that is our job. That is what we are here to do. We must lead with love and care. And I expect every elected official to lead with love and care. I love every resident of the city of Chicago, and so therefore I will fight for every resident of the 26th Ward. And we will also hold CHA accountable to rehabilitate every single vacant unit across the city of Chicago so that we can house our people. I am prepared to do that. And I hope that we have your support in doing so and that we can encourage and inspire every resident across the city of Chicago to defend our homeless brothers and sisters. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Heather Wills, HeatherWills. I am candidate for alderperson in Chicago's 18th Ward. The truth is that this is not just an issue on the north side or on the west side. We need housing across our entire city. Across our entire city. This is not just an issue on the north side or the west side. We need housing across our entire city. And I stand as the candidate for alderperson in the 18th Ward to make sure that happens right in our 18th Ward. What we see is that unhoused folks are also living in our community. They also deserve dignity and respect. And I am the candidate to make sure that they get just that. Housing is a human right. It is each of ours right to have a liberated quality of life. And this city must give that to every resident, every person. It is our responsibility to stand up for those who are attempted to be walked over, who are attempted to be stepped on and pushed aside. It is our responsibility as electeds and as candidates to make sure that we speak out loudly against those who are trying to decimate homes for unhoused people. And so I stand here with folks, not only who are current electeds, but who are also running across our city to say enough is enough. It is time for us to raise up voices across our city that are committed to the residents of Chicago. I am Heather Wills. I stand in support with this coalition with Bring Chicago Home, also as a member of the Illinois Poor People Campaign Southside Cluster, to say housing is a human right. Enough is enough. Let us stand together and love one another. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman of the 25th Ward.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Buenos dias. First of all, thank you to the Chicago Union of the Homeless for continuing to fight and all the advocates across the city. Housing is a human right. And it is a shame that the city of Chicago continues to neglect so many residents who are looking for shelter in the city of Chicago. We have seen all sorts of policies, even policies that continue to push and pitch people against each other. As we have a housing crisis, we have a humanitarian crisis. And we need shelter for everyone in the city of Chicago. We got the resources, but we don't have the political will to make it happen. I'm proud to see Commissioner Johnson here, a good friend of our community, no, during election time. But when it's difficult and when it's not convenient, because there's a lot of political interest, a lot of financial interest denying the right to shelter to many people across the city. The 51st Ward, that's how many people are unhoused, unsheltered today in the city of Chicago. And it shouldn't be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. we have the investments, that we have the resources to invest in people. The city of Chicago, the city of broad shoulders, the biggest assets are the people of the city of Chicago. We continue to see luxury housing popping up across the city and everywhere. But yet we don't see shelters, we don't see warming shelters. We don't see the will of even political candidates that pander for votes, calling themselves progressives. There's no bigger issue than the issue of housing right now in the city of Chicago. Instability creates violence. And the suffering of people who are disinvested and marginalized for way too long require the urgency of the moment. So I'm proud to be here with a group of coalition of people elected committed to housing as a human right, supporting the Bring Home Chicago ordinance, supporting to tax the rich, tax corporations. I just saw the other day an editorial questioning Commissioner Johnson's financial plan to tax the rich so that we have the resources that communities need. If the financial issues wants to be partners with the city of Chicago, let's invest in people.
That's right.
Let's stop investing in dirty money to take down people who are fighting for housing as a human right. Those are the financial interests of the past. Those who shut down schools, those who shut down shelters, those who shut down mental health clinics and continue to disinvest in our communities. For months now, we have asked the city of Chicago to repurpose empty public buildings, empty schools, empty churches, so that we can house those who right now are in dire need of a home. So today, our commitment to elect people who are committed to fight for housing as a human right, to make a reality for every Chicagoan to have a stability and a shelter over their heads. Today, let's support the Bring Home Chicago ordinance. Let's bring every initiative to make sure that everybody across the city of Chicago have the right to be sheltered, the right for a home, the right to be here in the city of Chicago, because that's what's at stake. People continue to keep working people out of the city, and we all one paycheck away from being homeless. So let's make sure that this fight is a fight for every Chicagoan across the city. Thank you, and si se puede, let's elect more people who believe in this.
Si se
Believe in
puede.
housing as a right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't see, is Carlos still here?
My name is Carlos Ramirez Rosa. I'm the alderman of Chicago's 35th Ward. That's first name Carlos, last name Ramirez -Rosa. The 35th Ward is nearby. It represents portions of Logan Square, Avondale. And in our community, we have also seen the city come out and plan sweeps, where they put these red stickers on people's tents and say, we're gonna come back in a few days, in a week, and we're gonna throw your belongings away. Kicking people while they're down is not a solution to homelessness. Destroying people's housing, the little housing that they have, these tents that they have, that is not a solution to homelessness. And so consistently, we have said as a community, residents, neighbors, community organizations, consistently we have come together and said, give them a home or leave them alone.
Yes.
Give them a home or leave them alone. See, the thing is, this mayor has failed. Mayor Lightfoot, when she ran in 2019, she said that if elected, she would pass the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance, a proposal that was created by the Chicago Coalition of the Homeless and allied groups that would raise hundreds of millions of dollars to get people off the streets and into permanent housing. Mayor Lightfoot said she would enact that policy if elected. Well, she was elected, but she didn't keep her promises. So we have a solution to the homelessness crisis in the city of Chicago. We have a solution to get people off the streets. It's called the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance. And the only thing that we're lacking is elected officials to get the job done.
That's right.
So the mayor, the fact that she continues to send teams out into our neighborhoods to harass homeless people, the fact that he had to wake up and see this on his tent, telling him that you've got to go, but you have no place to go, is a failure of leadership in Chicago City Hall. And so it's time for change. It's time for the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance to be passed, and it's time to have funding to get people off the street and into a permanent home.
It's time.
This brother right here, su nombre una vez más? Angel lives here. And Angel is the one that removed this sticker from his tent. He said that there's another tent where one of his fellow encampment residents was living. And when he was told by the police that he had to move his items, when he was told by city officials that he had to move his items, he got so upset and so distraught that he destroyed his tent.
Wow.
This is not what the residents of the city of Chicago deserve. They deserve dignity, they deserve justice, they deserve a mayor and a city council that will bring Chicago home. Thank you.
Yes.